Today, I want us to just look. I wanted to not look yet, actually, but we're going to be looking at Exodus 32 and 33. But before I start reading, I have like a quick tip to kind of share. So, my tip for today is to believe. And I know you're like, of course I believe, but really believe that God is out there and is there to support you, is there to help you, is not waiting for you to make that wrong move and give you like a whip on your back and put you back in shape, or is not watching you to, and laughing and enjoying as you're making that mistake. And why I'm saying that is you need to really visualize God that way as a loving father. I know that we've heard a lot of probably like messages in the past, and we've thought that, God is just going to fold his hands when we're going through pain. And then when that season is over, then he just come and whisk us away. He's a loving father. So the question is, would a loving father just fold his hands and watch you go through that season? No, it will be there. It will carry you through it. It would ease your pain as much as he can, but he's going to definitely allow you to learn from that season because you need that season for your growth. I remember one great illustration that was given once before a long time ago, and it kind of stuck with me. And the person said, look, no matter how much you love your 10-year-old, you love your 10-year-old so much. It means the world to you. You want to give your 10-year-old the world. You are never going to allow your 10-year-old to have the keys to your cars. And you say, you know what? Have fun. Drive off. Go have fun with your friends. You're probably not going to do that because you know what's going to happen to that 10-year-old, or you know what's going to happen to that 5-year-old or that 2-year-old. Imagine that. So really, that's how loving God is. He wants to give you the world, but he needs you to grow into that space. So that's why I said believe. Just believe that in the season you're in, God is with you. It's such a powerful thing to believe in your heart. So we're reading Exodus 32 and 33. And as always, if anything pops up in my mind by the Holy Spirit, I would share. And of course, if anything pops up in your mind too, please go ahead and share that in the comments. So let's go. It said, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, they gathered together to Aaron and said to him, so this is Moses on the mountain getting instructions from God on what to do. And the people down there just waiting. Of course, they don't know what's going on. They're wondering what's happening. They gathered together to Aaron and said to him, up, make us gods to go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. This is what we do, right? We always want a shortcut. When things happen, we're like, you know what? I got this. I can fix this. Meanwhile, God had been working with Moses hand in hand to prepare something for him. And so in their minds, they're like, you know what? Let's just fix this up ourselves. We know what to do. So Aaron replied, take the gold rings from the ears of your wives, your sons and daughters, and bring them to me. This is so interesting because this is the same gold and the same, things that God is telling Moses that he's going to collect from the people to build this Ark of Covenant, to build this place of testimony, God is giving instruction on who is going to be ordained. And on the other hand, man's impatience is making them act on what they think. And it's interesting that every time we're impatient, we usually come up with an inferior plan to what God has for us. Very inferior, very, very inferior. They're going to make gods for themselves. The gods that didn't bring them out of Egypt. So all the people, interesting that Aaron too was going to be ordained as a prophet, or as a priest. So he's doing his priestly duties, but just not the right season, right? So all the people took the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron and received the gold at their hand and fashioned it into a graven stool and made it a molten calf. And they said, these are your gods, O Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw the molten calf, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be feast to the Lord. So Aaron is actually doing, fulfilling his calling as a priest, but not to the God that he's supposed to do that for. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offering. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. The Lord said to Moses, go down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. The instruction The only instruction, if you watch the previous video, the only instruction that God gave them was that they should not serve any other God except Him. I think God said it a couple of times. You know, the time when they wanted to be by the mountain and hear the Lord speak, He did tell them twice. And that's the very instruction that they decided to break. And sometimes we're like that. God gives us an instruction. That particular instruction that is given us is the very instruction that we want to break. And this dates back to Adam and Eve. That very instruction that they were given, don't eat out of the fruit, is the very instruction that we're going to break. I saw something, I think I saw it today actually. Somebody put a caption on social media and said, if the devil comes up to me and tells me, oh, eat out of the tree, I will look at the devil and say, why don't you eat it? You're the one who wants to be like God. Take a bite. I thought that was cool. So really, Aaron should have a better answer for the people than actually helping them to build this gods and also offering the burnt and the peace offering that they're supposed to offer to God. He said, they turned aside so quickly, so quickly. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my rod may burn hot against them, and that I may destroy them. But I will make of you a great nation. But Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why does your rod blaze hot against your people, whom you have brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, for evil he brought them forth to slay them in the mountains and consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath and change your mind concerning this evil against your people. This is Moses speaking on behalf of this people to God. And as you remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and all this land that I've spoken of will I give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. Then the Lord turned from the evil which he had thought to do to his people, and Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the two tables of the testimony in his hand, tables or tablets that were written on both sides. The tables were the work of the Lord. The tables were the work of God, and writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tables. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. But Moses said, it is not the sound of shouting for victory, neither is it the sound of the cry of the defeated, but the sound of singing that I hear. And as soon as he came near to the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger blazed hot. And he cast the tables out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf they had made and burnt it in the fire and ground it to the ground to powder and scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, what did these people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of the Lord blaze out. You know the people, that they were set on evil. For they said to me, make us gods, which shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. I said to him, those who have any gold, let them take it off. So they gave it to me, and they cast it into the fire, and they came out this calf. And when Moses saw that the people were unruly and unrestrained, for Aaron had let them get out of control, so that they were a derision, an object of shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, whoever is on the Lord's side, let him come to me. And all the Levites gathered together to him. Okay? And the Levites gathered together, and he said to them, thus say the Lord God of Israel, every man put his sword on his side and go in and out from the gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. And Moses said to the Levites, you have consecrated yourself today to the Lord, each man against his own son and his brother, that the Lord may restore and bestow his blessing upon you this day. The next day, Moses said to the people, you have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, O Lord, these people have sinned a great sin and have made themselves gods of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray you, out of your book which you've written. But the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. But now go, lead the people to the place of which I have told you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I punish, I will visit their sin upon them. And the Lord sent a plague upon the people because they made the calf which Aaron fashioned for them. I was going to read chapter 33, but I think I'm going to stop here because there's just so much packed into this chapter 32. I see here how they've gone ahead and made themselves their own gods. And I see the consequences of that. And I just see how funny it is in comparison to what God really wants them to do. Aaron was supposed to be ordained as a priest that was supposed to make burnt offering every morning. I did a video on that. And now they're making this burnt offering and celebrating in front of the calf. And what has happened was that they become shameless. That's the first one. They became very shameless. It says here in verse 25, said, so they became an object of shame among their enemies. They were acting unruly, uncontrollable. That's one. They were acting unruly and they were unrestrained because they got out of control. That's one. And then the second one was when Moses stood by the gates and said, who's with me? Only the Levites showed up. The people did not want to be with him anymore. This after everything that has happened, right? And then I see how a plague came on them because of sin. Interesting how when they were in Egypt, it was Egyptians that the plague came on, but now they brought it on them. And I believe that the biggest message from this chapter is whatever it is that God has told you to do. And oh yeah, I wanted to point this out too, of how skilled the person that made the golden calf was. And remember in a previous video, I talked about how God had said, you know what, I've made skilled men ready to serve me, not themselves, not gods. And I just know that whatever God has called you to do, if you're in a season of waiting, it's interesting. I was talking about, believe. If you're in a season of waiting where everything is just so quiet and you're thinking, God, I know you called me to do this thing. There's a huge temptation to want to look for an alternative. It looks like it, but it's not it. I've done that before. I was working on a particular project in my business. I know this is what God has called me to do. It wasn't forthcoming. It wasn't bringing the results that I wanted. And I went ahead and did not stop the project, but I went ahead and did something else. That's what I did. I went ahead and did something else. And what happened was it took time away from me, time that I could have been working on that project. And the moment I realized that, I had to stop doing what I was doing and go back to the project that God has called me to do. Because that's the phony. That's the trick of the enemy, to distract you, to open doors for death, for destruction, for plagues to come into your home. So whatever season you're in, I am begging you, stay in that season. Believe God, trust God, depend on him. Know that he's able to do all things. And I promise you that this season will become something you will talk about, you will laugh about, and then you tell people you don't know what it feels like, right? I promise you that. Okay, as long as you continue to hold on to God and believe, definitely this season will pass. A season doesn't last forever. So that's it for today. I'll see you around. Bye.